Hey everybody, how you doing? This is True Powers Mine. This is TPIM. That's our live. uh, the folks from the Peace Movement or Peace Mission Movement will be joining us. There's some technical difficulties. The last time we had them on, there was some as well. All right, I decided to go ahead and do the show, but they will be joining me very, very soon. But I want to throw this. Hey D, what's up? Good evening. I want to throw this in here. This is one of the viewers' website for their book, and I said I was gonna happen to see that they posted it on Facebook, and I was gonna promote it because I believe in promoting and helping people who I can help. So here's the website. Kiki's book. I believe there's several books on here actually. What's up, Cobra? Yes, Father Divine will be in the house. Well, emissaries anyhow. Dr. Stewart and others will be joining us yet again. So check out the website there and buy the book. Help the viewer out, and maybe they can turn around and help the show out. Who knows how these things go? But not only are we going to be talking about the peace movement and how it has grown and matured, we're going to talk about solutions tonight to the racial ills of our nation. Now, obviously, the calling lines will be open like halfway through. But for right now, I want to, obviously keep it off for a second because everything's going to be run through my computer. So I don't want to bog down and none of that good stuff. But while we wait, I want to share something with you guys that I found interesting. And I will be contacting Roman Light soon to see why is France such a hot potato right now. Hottest day in France history. Global warming, whether you want to accept this or not, is quite real. But it's not something we can tax ourselves. Quite honestly, the damage is already done. And what I mean by the damage is already done, the earth itself has already been created. For those of you who are followers of science, and you know about the supercontinent Pangea, global warming is real because, you have continental drift. So therefore, continents would drift to certain parts of the so-called globe, thus, global warming, global change. Now, I don't understand how carbon tax can stop that process other than making people richer who already have money. Because we all know the wealthy do not pay. Raven, welcome to the show. Do you know of Jim Jones, People's Temple, and Father Divine's relationship? I'm aware. Yeah, I'm aware of that. But I'm also aware that people often lie to grasp power. It doesn't take away from what people do who are sincere in their heart. Yes, Jim Jones, in concert with government agencies, did some horrible things. But Mother and Father Divine did some wonderful things for folks. And it's only because of their kindness and love and caring and sharing was folks like Jim Jones even allowed to get in the position where they were at. Just like the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, in its conception, isn't a pedophilic operation. It's just that you get these sick, twisted people in positions of authority and power, and they bring in more sick, twisted buddies, and then they'll get a little ring going on. And just as I believe the Catholic Church is not about a molestation of children, I don't think the international peace or international uh, peace mission movement is about harming women and children and men either. That was a rotten egg, totally rotten egg, who's no longer on the earth. And that's all I really care to speak on about Mr. Jones. He really has no place in this discussion tonight or any other discussions I have with the good folks over there in the future. And it's not that I'm trying to hide information or any of that. It's because there's really nothing left to say. The movement suffered dearly because of the actions of that. Just think how many people went hungry. Just think how many people went without housing. Just think how many people went without love. What's up, brother T. Will? Welcome to the show. And they went without all this. I'm just waiting for the international peace mission movement folks to call me back. I was talking to them around 4:30ish my time, and they were still there's some technical problems over there, but I decided to roll the show and go ahead and promote Kiki's book. Hopefully y'all go and check it out. The rabbit hole runs deep, brother. Yes, Raven. You know, and the sad thing, Raven, it doesn't have to run deep. No, just hear me out. This isn't fantasy. It only runs deep because those at the bottom want to remain concealed. And they got puppeteers up here on top, guiding you to the hole so you'll fall into their trap. And not only that, you know, when we talk about certain agencies participating in some of that foolishness that went on, yeah, that could be a bad day in Dallas for somebody. Because every one of those men, women, and children that lost their lives behind that guy, they have loved ones out there that truly and sincerely loves them and their memory, because they ain't been gone that long that everyone forgotten who's involved with that deal. And I want to be respectful to those folks. And more importantly, I want to be respectful to those loved ones, the people who have survived. I want to bring hope. I want to bring solutions. I think we got enough bitterness to go around. Now, let's jump into some of the headlines while we wait real quick. Okay. Now, I don't know what the population of black folks are in Alaska. I would imagine not that terribly high. But Alaska now, crime capital of America. Did you hear that? Alaska. So you keep on running your mouth about Chicago. Keep on talking crazy about LA. Keep on pointing finger at good old St. Louis. But them boys are getting down up there in Alaska. They're putting in dirt. Dare I say, it's almost the American way. And then we have a sulfuric acid leak, train derailment between Canada and Michigan. Oh, shit. But here's the real story, guys, if you care to see. Remember the other day when I had the man talking about Germany is finally going to defend themselves and, you know, Trump's all happy. Yeah, Merkel, this is a part of the system, yeah. Just keep on playing. Just keep on acting like you guys don't see this shit. German far-right group used police data to compile death lists. Keep playing your games. German far-right group used police data to compile death lists. Activists linked to military and police suspects are preparing terror attacks, report says. You guys just don't get it, man. A lot of these cats are ideologues. They believe, and you're not going to change their belief. And they have allies, they have loved ones, they have mothers, they have fathers, they have sisters, they have cousins. Keep on relying on people's kindness. You keep on relying on people's ability to make political maneuvers for your freedom or your dignity or your liberty. And what always is going to happen, they're going to falter. At a certain point in time, people are going to stop giving a damn. And this is where we're at right now. You know, I guess a couple of videos I did concerning the Blood Oath book has been quite timely, I guess. I don't want to see what's going to happen. But it's due to our ignorance. It's due to our lack of power. And it's due to our lack of unity that it's going to happen. And when it does kick off, like everything, it always starts slow. I mean, wouldn't the best front in the world, ISIS agents coming to pick up people? Who do they take? I don't know. Some sort of illegal. And these people are just disappeared. I mean, you do know there are such things as plasma furnaces. That basically they just throw, have it 50, 60 meters below a concrete floor, sloping down, just throw you in and you just kind of story 3 it away. I'm still waiting on the good doctor. But while I have you guys here in the chat room, anybody have any names you guys want me to track down? Any experts, any philosophers, doctors, engineers, news reporters? Type this in Google and tell me what you see. 2019 most dangerous cities in USA. All right, let's do it. 25 most dangerous cities, USA. Let's check it out. When it comes to travel, one of the most important things to consider is safety. Yep. So you might not want to go down there to the Dominican Republic and tripping. Most people would assume safety is something that they have not to worry about. Let's go. 25, Lansing, Michigan. First up. Why do they always have to start off with Michigan? Who did Michigan upset? You didn't type it in. No, I cut and pasted it in. What, should I typed it in? Does it really make a difference? We already, whoa, 150 murders. That's horrible. Okay, let me type it in. Hold on. I'll be accurate about it. Okay. I'm just going to type. You want me to type it in exactly how you have it, right? Most dangerous cities in the, and I'll even do a lowercase US. And it's like the same thing. Oh, my bad. No, it's absolutely right. Hmm. Is there any particular website? Oh, just the related cities: Detroit, St. Louis, Stockton, Baltimore. Baltimore is number 4 on that list. Chicago, New Orleans, Oakland. And it still came up with the little same deal, but let's look at Forbes. Forbes is somewhat of a trusted source of this type. Number 1 on Forbes most 10 most dangerous cities. Number 1, Detroit. Population 713,239 souls. Violent crime rate 2,137 crimes per 1,000 citizens. Let's go to the next. What? And why they got to hold on. This is such propaganda. Well, that's not much better. But what they show, yeah, where is Alaska? That could be fake news. St. Louis, number 2 most. I can't even say it. It hurts my throat. St. Louis, the Stanley Cup champions, 2019. Second most dangerous city according to Forbes. Population only 320,454 souls. Violent crime rate 1,857 per 100,000. Damn. That's bad, guys. That's really bad. Number 3 is Oakland. Population 395,317 souls. Violent crime rate 1,683 per 100,000 persons. But at least Oakland has flowers and a kind of decent like building. It's not all bombed out looking. Oh shit. Memphis, Tennessee. 4th most dangerous city according to Forbes. Population 600,000. Wait, 652,725. Violent crime rate 1,583 per 100,000 persons. Pretty rough in Barbecue City. Birmingham, and they actually had to put Alabama as if we wouldn't know, but Birmingham, Alabama. Population 213,258. Violent crime rate 1,483 per 100,000. Is Baltimore possession of a firearm is a in Baltimore possession of firearm misdemeanor? Well, I'm just going down the list, brother David. Welcome to the show, by the way. Atlanta, Georgia, number 6 on Forbes most dangerous cities. 425,433. Violent crime rate 1,433,000. All right, 1,433 per 100,000 souls in that city is expect a violent crime. Baltimore, number 7. You didn't make the list, Baltimore. Coming in at 626,848,000 souls. Violent crime rate 1,417 per 100,000. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Stockton, I would assume this is California. Population 295,000. Wait, 295,136. Wait, 295,136,000. Oh, these numbers are just mind-boggling. And it's basically 1,400 crimes per every 100,000 souls in that poor city. Then it's Cleveland, another crime rate. Then it's Buffalo, There you go, Hotet. Buffalo's in the house at 20 or 262,484 souls, 1,238 crimes per 100,000. That's sad. That is truly sad. And then Detroit again, and then they go into their BS. Now let's pull up a map. I just want to pull up a map of the U.S. real quick. I just want you guys to see something super fast. Hold on, I need a map with the cities on it. There we go. There's something, kind of, I guess. Hopefully, you guys can see this. I'm just going to take any city arbitrarily. Take Austin here. If you was to go hours drive any direction from Austin, you're going to hit extreme country. Same thing's true with Oklahoma City, Santa Fe, Cheyenne, Des Moines, Jefferson City, Little Rock, Phoenix. The list goes on and on and on. There's really no reason for all of us to be piled up on top of each other when we could spread this thing out. All this, if you ever flown over the United States, you can literally see the towns and villages. And you can see this miles upon miles upon miles of barren, vacant land. The reason why you find yourselves all in these cities is because you're sheeple. You got too many wolf dogs and wolves and lions and tigers and bears outside the city limits. Hold on, I gotta find this statistic real quick. How many urban people get shot every year? Gun violence in America. Hold on. Whoa. Hold on. Gun violence in the U.S. kills more black people than urban dwellers. What? This is unfortunate. On November 5th, just 35 days after the deadly Las Vegas shooting, a man walked into a church in a small Texas town, murdered 26 people with an assault rifle. Coverage dominated the news. But the day before, even more people, 43, were shot to death in cities and towns around the country, and nobody really seems to notice. Shooting kills more than 36,000 Americans each year. Every day, 90 deaths and 200 injuries are caused by guns. Unlike terrorist act, every day gun violence that impacts our communities is accepted as a way of life. For one, it's not your community if you're getting shot, gunned down like that. That's just merely your neighborhood, place where you dwell. There's no real sense of community or unity. I didn't think it was quite that high. 36,000 people. That means in this chat room, chances are somebody in here knows someone who has been shot or even knows someone who's done the shooting. You're not going to get rid of that. What that should say is more than 36,000 Americans each year fuck up some kind of way that drives somebody to basically blow them away. unless it's one of those random deals where the guy's just walking down the street with his girl and dude just runs up on him and blows him away. I would almost guarantee probably 80% of that number there, the 36,000, they were shot by someone they know. They were shot by someone they associate with. They were shot by someone they personally screwed over. But then you have these mass shootings. I don't know what to tell you guys, man. I don't know what to tell you. Just like the victims of the mass shooters, though, who's going to be there to protect you when the gunman comes for you? Is your phone going to be on? Will you be able to call 911? Well, I think you can call 911 whether the phone's on or off. But if it's not charged, you won't be able to. What happens if 45,000 men with guns linked up on the chat board? Hey, guys, at 6 o'clock, we're going to do it. 6 o'clock, just come out your house shooting. 40,000 men do that across America simultaneously. What do you think is going to happen? I know what's going to happen. More erosions of the common citizens' rights. And it's sad, man, that we got to this point that there's no more compromise, I guess, is what to say. Because only thing to say it like this, man. As you have folks yelling and hollering, wolf ticketing all day long, certain people are hearing it. And these people ain't liking it. And it won't take too much more for that powder keg to explode. There's even more to the story. CDC data shows that within our nation's cities, Black Americans are on average 8 times more likely to be killed. 8 times, yeah, by firearm than those who are white. The rate of death by gun homicides for Black people exceeds those amongst whites in all 50 states. So this isn't a fluke. This isn't just happening in your state. This is happening in all 50 states. And I also probably would assume the territories as well. But there is a tremendous variation in the magnitude of this disparity. In 2015, a Black person living in Wisconsin was 26 times more likely to be fatally shot than a white person in that state. At the same time, a Black person in Arizona was only 3.2 times more likely than a white person to be killed by a gun. The combination of being Black and living in urban areas is even more deadly. In 2015, the Black homicide rate for urban areas in Missouri was higher than the total death rate from any cause in New York State. Oh, by the way, the Missouri state I live in, folks. Jesus, man. Like Judge said, we have some dysfunction going on. And here's the facts and figures right here in front of our face. It's deadly potential just to be a melanated man, woman, or child in an urban setting. So when you hear about all these people talking about the city love and love the city and the country ain't shit, bunk and fucks, just remember that. Was that one same cat talking about love the city, down for the city, die for the city? Might be a guy that kills you away, blows you away for the city. Americans are 128 times more likely to be killed in an everyday gun violence, just every day, than any act of international terrorism. But yet we can spend look, man, here's the deal. If you would cut people checks, I mean all people, all the poor people, cut them checks and get them economically viable, there'd be less deaths in the street. Then it probably would be only up to the terrorism to make sure that we get our budgets each year. Because people will be too busy enjoying life, be talking about killing each other. Now, there are always going to be people out there that's going to try to scam somebody and get caught up. There's always going to be that individual. Independent interview. On my old block body dropped all summer long. Yellow tape. California. Damn. On my old block. Damn, that's just sad, man. Welcome to the show, Independence. This is what I'm trying to convey, y'all. We have to become a nation of citizens so that we don't have young people like Independent coming to the show talking about firsthand accounts of bodies dropping all day long. If young men and women had dreams more so than just becoming a damn drug dealer or becoming a damn whore, seeing some doggone light at the end of the damn tunnel, I know these numbers could go away. But you know what the reality is, folks? There's millions and millions of blue collar people who bust their ass all fucking year long. And when they hear stories like this about people dying and all that, only thing they can think of, I'm glad it's not me. I still got my 401k, and this system cannot fail me, especially once I get old. Now, while everybody's sitting here running around here worrying about this and worrying about that, don't forget, if we happen to make it to like 2030 or so, I believe. Hold on. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. I want Google to say it because y'all won't believe me, but you guys will believe Google. When is Social Security expected to run out of funds? The Social Security trust funds are projected to become insolvent in 2035. Insolvent is a very fancy way of saying they ain't paying out shit, according to the program's trustees. Now, who did we elect to govern that important trust fund? Yeah, that's a damn good question, ain't it? Who are the trustees of the Social Security Trust Fund? The Secretary of Treasury, we don't elect. Secretary of Labor, we don't elect. The Chairman of Social Security Advisory Board, we don't elect. And the Secretary of Health and Human Services, we do not elect. We have a government that was founded for the rich, by the rich. Now, somewhere in the mix, we started all believing the propaganda of freedom, liberty, etc., blah, blah, blah. And for the most part, it kind of manifests for many of our lives. Many more not. Once you guys realize this, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it, a system cannot fail you if it was not designed for you to begin with. So if you're sitting there in a hobble, you're sitting there in Section 8, you're sitting there on the side of the road, you're sitting there up against the library listening to the show, you have nothing, understand the system was not designed for you to begin with. Unless your people were wealthy and affluent. Quite literally, this government was not designed for you. So therefore, that what gives rise to all these other little subgroups now, fighting and jockeying for power. What would happen, hypothetically, It's unbeknownst to the people who are putting together this global war. America is suddenly attacked and destroyed. What would happen to the world? I bet you Israel be shitting their boots. Probably Japan as well. This world order in which we find ourselves dwelling in is only held together with the thinnest of veneer, the thinnest layer of veneer. Hold on. I don't know if he. Oh, I thought that they came back. And this veneer is called your economy. This veneer is called your law enforcement. And this veneer is called your civic responsibility and where you see yourself as a citizen and your place in the society. Oh, and electricity. Now, once the electricity and the money's gone, the law enforcement, you think they're going to sit there and patrol the streets when their babies and their woman's at the crib? No, 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 no. They're going to band together and have their little, they might bring their families all to the station or something. So it's like a little fortress or something. But what about the rest of you, people? What about the rest of you? You think that child rapist that's on your little pedophile, list that you can look up, you think he's going to just chill up in the house? You don't think he's going to be creeping about? What about the thief? What about the maniac who's, is not taking his medication or her and they have access to a weapon? That's when family and unity is really going to mean something. It's about to storm like hell in St. Louis metro area. Well, we need it. Wipe away the chemtrail juice that they've been spraying on us every night. Get that residue off of us, T. Now, hold on one second. They may be having some major problems. Hold on, I'm gonna give a shout out. I'm gonna call who am I gonna call? Ghostbusters? I don't know. What are we talking about? Okay. Let's let's hold on one second, y'all. I'm trying to get to the numbers. I'm just trying my best. Trying my best. Damn it. Okay. Well, I'll send a message. Now, listen, guys. I think that's why it rains so much. The old government. Well, only thing I can say, I sit out on my deck. I look up. I see jets. I see the juice being sprayed. Next morning, it rains. Next day, it rains. That's all I know. I know that there's UN white papers about cloud seeding programs. The government admit openly to cloud seeding. And I think to a certain degree, if we don't manage to rain, then yeah, we could damn well be in a desert situation. I just think the chemicals they choose to spray on us, we could probably use other chemicals that'd be hopefully less toxic. Yo, 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 Truth Talk Nation in the house. Greetings. Welcome to the show. You know, I don't want to see. I don't want to call nobody just yet because if I know my luck, as soon as I call somebody, whether it be Mark, Judge, Jane, John, whoever, then the folks would call in from the international peace mission movement. I know it. I know it. I know it. I know it. So I'm gonna hold tight. You know, I I thought the show was, I thought they'd just have a few minutes delay. And even, we had to reschedule. Cheaters of War, US of A. The Geneva Convention states you cannot use weather in warfare. I think that's why they're not trying to mask it. Well, okay. See, that's where we mess up though. The Geneva only applies to, like you said, an active state of war. It does not apply to the day-to-day operation. That's why they can use tear gas against protesters in Ferguson, but they cannot use tear gas against protesters in Baghdad. That's why they can, torture you and stuff in some respects, but they can't torture you if you're other people. It's really weird. It really almost shows you just how whack war is. Instead of just total destruction, hurry up and get that shit over with. Oh, let's just bleed this out a little bit so people can make some money. Let's not be too medieval. Let's just, let them regroup, get a couple of victories, then we'll crush them with a couple more, then we'll let them get a couple more, then we'll crush them. That's how we kind of fight our wars, which is really sad. You know what? War has been the topic. Hold on. Hold on 1 second, yeah. No answer. Oh, and I did have this. Hold on. There it is. That's the number. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, it's the same number. Okay, whatever. Hold on. I'm gonna try one other person. I'm so hesitant to do this. Oh no. Okay. Well, basically, yeah. I wanted to get verification on the Social Security thing. If you're middle age and you really don't have a lot of money put back for your retirement, you might contemplate: are you going to eat cat food or dog food? I know dog food might be a little better for your intestines, the roughage in it, but I think cat food probably has a better taste. I don't know. Because you ain't gonna be getting no Social Security, yeah. And when that shit storm happens, oh God, it's gonna be a very tragic day. That's probably when euthanasia is gonna become in vogue. Now, hold on. Oh, one last phone call. I've tried everybody. I'll just try one last phone call. Hopefully he's not listening to the show. I'll be like, turn down the show. Oh, all right. Well, I tried, guys. I tried. I tried. You know what? I'm not going to allow this to happen. I am not going to allow this to happen. I am going to give some good information. Hold on. I have to go somewhere real quick. Hold on 1 second, yeah.
Hello, my name is Dave Emery, and we're going to continue with our analysis of an excerpting of the book Blood Oath, subtitled A Conspiracy to Murder Nicole Brown Simpson. The book was co-authored by Stephen Worth and Carl Jaspers. It's published in softcover by Rainbow Books, copyright 1996. This book concerns the allegations of an anonymous informant codenamed Skinner, who maintains he was part of an elite white supremacist strike team that murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman.
Now, I wanted to play that for you. I want to tie it over here. What he just said. Let me go back to this article. Oh, don't tell me they already took it down. Oh, here it is. Let's listen to what he said just one last time.
Of an excerpting of the book Blood Oath, subtitled A Conspiracy to Murder Nicole Brown Simpson. The book was co-authored by Stephen Worth and Carl Jaspers. It's published in softcover by Rainbow Books, copyright 1996. This book concerns the allegations of an anonymous informant codenamed Skinner, who maintains he was part of an elite white supremacist strike team that murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, framed O.J. Simpson for the murders, and did so in order to not only divide blacks and whites and heighten racial tensions in the United States in hopes of igniting a race war, which would lead to the ascension of the white supremacists to the pinnacle of power, but also to discredit and amend the legal system and to discredit law enforcement in general and the LAPD in particular. Basically, a Nazi psyop. This operation was backed by unnamed foreign terrorists, probably German Nazi terrorists, but that's not made clear, and involved sympathetic elements within law enforcement who provided tactical intelligence and also directed the investigation in the direction of O.J. Simpson. And this particular operation was designed in order to celebrate the 10th anniversary, according to Skinner anyway, the 10th anniversary of the Order's assassination of Denver talk show host Alan Berg. This operation also supposedly began, or the attempt to ignite a race war, with the abortive because it was discovered by law enforcement, to attack the African Methodist Episcopal Church in the AME Church in Los Angeles. This group also, according to Skinner, had murdered Brett Cantor, a music producer and nightclub owner, because he refused to market a white supremacist band called Rahowa, and in particular was apparently contemptuous of that. He was also a Jew, and according to Skinner, that group murdered him. Indeed, OJ's defense team had cited the almost identical murder of Brett Cantor to the similarity between the Brett Cantor murder and the murders of Nicole and Ron. And according to this informant, indeed, Brett Cantor was murdered by the same group. We are going to deal next with not only the nature of the strike team, but how the group was able to plant O.J. Simpson's blood, according to Skinner anyway, at the scene of the crime. One of the most chilling aspects of the account presented here, and that concerns the elite military and law enforcement backgrounds of the people who were in the strike team. Now, again, none of the strike team members is identified by name, and indeed, it was Skinner's desire to express to the strike team members his abiding loyalty to the group, and he did not want any of them to be arrested. Still, he felt that the operation itself was, he had a change of heart, and he felt it had to be stopped. That is, the desire to ignite a race war and to inflict terrorist casualties on Americans. The membership of the group, and again, this is an elite six-man white supremacist strike team, part of a blind cell, is described as follows by Skinner in the account. Again, Skinner's a code name in the account presented by the authors. Conversation was low-key, dominated by cautious idle chatter designed to mark time for what they all knew would be a historic planning session. Make no mistake about it, this assembled gathering was the cream of the crop. Ex-Green Beret, Special Forces, law enforcement officers, survival specialists, and military officers. All were consumed with a common hatred for elected authority and non-white races. They were a very dangerous group to be reckoned with. Indeed, and the deliverer, their leader, was a former high-ranking officer. So indeed, note that they were ex-Green. This would seem to imply that in addition to ex-Green Beret, perhaps active duty special forces, although that's not clear from the context, and law enforcement officers, survival specialists, and military officers. Indeed, given the consummate military and political capabilities of elements like Green Beret, Navy SEALs, and so forth, their presence in a white supremacist organization and as part of a white supremacist strike team is extremely alarming. Again, I want to note in the aforementioned Specialized Knowledge and Abilities series, the Special Forces Underground, who published the Resistor, it's not clear if they are white supremacists, but certainly their rhetoric is very similar to the rhetoric of white supremacists, and they might be, for all we know, and they express an open contempt for democracy. Again, a very alarming development. More about some of the background of some of these strike team members. Of the deliverer, Skinner says, I couldn't help but think of how he had a way with words. Hell, this was no hillbilly. The deliverer had held high rank in the military. He still looked good, and he talked even better. So again,
you know, the tragic thing about this truth, and I'm glad you got the book, brother. Sister Janice, welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The tragic thing about this is that there's unknown or untold brothers and sisters who probably died at the hands of these folks. And when I say brothers and sisters, I'm talking about people of all so-called races. And this type of savagery is allowed to happen because the system needs it to happen.
And apparently the deliverer was a former high-ranking military officer. And still more about the deliverer. And here there's discussion of the contention that some of the strike team members had apparently been veterans of covert operations and had performed assassinations as part of covert operations for the government. Of the deliverer, Skinner speaks, and the author's right. He started to swing the laser dot in a slow, lazy circle like a spider entwining his prey, entrapping it in a web from which there was no escape. The deliverer smirked weirdly, his face contorted. Then he said softly, timing is going to be the most difficult part of the effort, unquote. And again, quoting, split-second coordination, very similar to the assassination some of us have been involved in for our governments. But now it's for our cause, and in the way I've conceived this plan, surveillance and timing are the most critical parts of the operation. So again, it appears that members of the strike team were indeed covert ops veterans. Still more, and this concerns one of the members who was to be conducting surveillance, again, what is described here as the enemy camp. That, of course, is OJ's place as well as Nicole's. One person could walk through the enemy camp uncontested, gathering intelligence as he posed as an everyday obnoxious sightseer, camera in hand. The surveillance teams would not walk into this battlefield blindfolded and unprepared. This was no ordinary tourist, but a brilliant, disenchanted ex-Green Beret ranking officer. So indeed, this is an exceedingly formidable group of people with extensive background in covert operations, assassinations for the government, etc. Beyond that, their equipment was extraordinarily sophisticated. They conducted electronic and physical surveillance on OJ's place and Nicole's, tapped both of their phones, had an electronic monitoring system on OJ's intercom, had decommissioned that or had utilized that for their electronic surveillance, I should say. They had infrared equipment, video equipment, a secure mobile communication system, communicators. Their communications were scrambled. This is a highly sophisticated team. They used intelligence methodology and highly sophisticated law enforcement and intelligence equipment for this operation. They even burglarized OJ's home after the Northridge earthquake, according to the account presented here. More about that in a few minutes. Of the extraordinarily sophisticated equipment that this highly sophisticated and very dangerous team had, quote, it's going to require the use of night surveillance equipment, infrared lenses, telephone taps, cellular phone scanners, remote listening gear, personal communicators, video cameras, including some of those miniature ones we just bought from a security catalog. The selection of the evidence left for the frame will...
Oh, righteous. Here they are. Hold on. Let me, Uh-oh. Hold on. They're trying to call me back. The International Peace Movement, folks. Oh my God, come on, please call me back, please. Let me
powering on.
Answer.
Ready to pair.
You there?
Paired.
Oh, can you hear me? Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. I just turned up the volume. You there, Dr. Stewart? Hello? Oh, no. Can't hear you. Hold on. Let me try to write a message here. Not now. All right, let's try it now. Hello?
Peace.
Peace, brother. Stewart, thank you. I know you guys were having some trouble over there, and I've been winging the show since 5, but that's no issue at all. Everyone there in attendance?
No one. They're not here yet. Someone's downstairs, so they'll probably be here very shortly. We don't have the microphone that we wanted to. We have a nice condenser microphone, but I think it's broken. I can't tell if it's broken or I played with it for probably over 3 hours total, and I couldn't get the sound quality we had before. And I do think somebody broke it.
Oh.
So we're using a different microphone. Does this sound all right?
Yeah, this one sounds fine. It's I'm sure they can hear.
Okay.
I mean,
we're gonna have to pass it around, and I know the P's pop on this microphone, but
well, I have a filter.
It's the best we can do.
So hopefully it's all working good. So you think it'll be about another 30 minutes or so?
I don't think it'll be that long. They know it's 7 o'clock, so I think they should be here very shortly.
Excellent. That sounds good. We were just having a discussion about the corruption in some police departments. Actually, we was doing a book called Blood Oath. We were doing like a commentary on that. But I do have you on the phone. You are actually live right now. There's a studio audience on the way here. My kids are coming here soon. But tonight we're going to talk about the movement and we're going to try to talk about solutions for this nation's problems as far as the racial divide. And
Good.
I hope everyone's ready for it. It's going to be exciting. And I mean, you know, if you just want to call me back when everyone gets there, that'd be fine too. And or if you want to sit and chat,
Okay.
that'd be fine as well.
Okay. There are a couple other things I'd like to get ready, so I'll call you back.
Okay.
Hopefully in about 10 minutes.
Awesome. That sounds
Thanks,
good.
bro.
Peace.
Peace.
Very good. Very good. So we know that they got their technical side fixed. Okay. That's beautiful. I'm going to continue on. What corruption and police
Incoming call.
Oh, everybody's calling me on something. Okay.
Incoming call.
Okay. What corruption? Hold on. I gotta get. What corruption in the police department? There's no corruption in the police department, brother. Yes, there is none. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Now let's get back to this commentary on Blood Oath.
Will depend on the circumstances and on our opportunities. 9 months of hard work should provide some situations and chance events that we can take advantage of. Codename Blade, another member, spoke up after studying the chart for a time and making some notes. Quote, to ensure that the timing sequence is synchronized between OJ and Nicole, I suggest that we have 2 teams in constant communication via our secure mobile systems, unquote. The deliverer was pleased. Quote, now you're thinking ahead. That's what we always have to do to stay in front of our enemies. That's great, unquote. Speedy looked a little confused. He asked, quote, how do we get the cops to find our evidence when we want them to, unquote? The deliverer replied quickly, quote, I guess you forget about our kinsmen inside the LAPD and the LASD. We can't forget our Trojan horse we talked about. Those kinsmen have been extremely active in our behalf. And again, that's a segment that I read earlier. More about the equipment that this group had. And again, it's a highly sophisticated array of equipment that they had. Returning once again to Blood Oath. And this is some of the description of their equipment while they were enjoying a feast cooked for them by Margie during the planning session. Again, Margie is the wife of the deliverer and a member of the group. The cabinets carried more than just dishes for food out here. Each team will be taking with them what I've previously described, the ultimate in intelligence gathering equipment. You'll have night vision equipment both for visual and photographic purposes. We've obtained wristwatch cameras and cellular phone scanners with audio intercept capability. Also, remote miniature audio and video recorders with transmitters, police scanners, and hands-free personal communications devices, including micro headsets containing transmitters, receivers, speaking tubes, and earpieces, and various other transmitting goodies. Let me show you this mini camera. It's truly unique. A compact camera system about the size of a pack of cigarettes. Thumper looked at the unit placed on the table by the deliverer, remarking, but how much definition does it provide? How's this? Asked the deliverer while turning on the mounted TV. Damn, that's unreal. Hey, Skinner, look how clear the picture is. Anyway, the point is some very, very sophisticated equipment indeed by this very, very sophisticated and well-trained group with an extraordinary background in law enforcement, the military, and covert operations in particular. One of the things that this group also had were a couple of West Tech security jackets. West Tech Security was the firm that was handling security at OJ's place, this for some of their reconnaissance operations. And again, quoting, I'm giving the enforcer a couple of West Tech security jackets we've had made up for this occasion. They're copies of the real thing. They're gray and have the words West Tech Security in patches embroidered on them. That's OJ's security firm. The enforcer held one up. The deliverer pointed to it. I took some pictures during my early scouting and had Margie whip them up. Never hurts to be prepared in case the situation arises. And again, this concerning the sophistication of this particular operation. I would also note that the group was able to burglarize O.J. Simpson's place. Again, they had it.
Now, I just want to put this thought in your mind. And this is for all the pitchfork crowd. Now, if we're just talking about just a little group, not just a little group, but just, a militant, angry group. They have all this weaponry and sophistication. What group does Black Lives have that type of capability? Doubtful. Does NAACP has that type of capability? Do they have a hit squad? Doubtful. Does a Southern Poverty Law Center have a clandestine super soldier type? Doubtful. And then after you get past that group, then you have the actual military to contend with. You got to think outside the box. That's all I got to say.
They had O.J.'s place under surveillance. They were able to burglarize O.J. Simpson's premises to take some Bruno Magli shoes, a watch cap, and also a pair of gloves, which they speculate may have actually been gloves of Jason Simpson and not O.J. as well. That is the explanation for the fact that the gloves didn't fit. And indeed, the group members, when they were watching the trial after the operation, were surprised that the gloves didn't fit, and that is, at least according to the account presented here, by Skinner. More about the group's burglary of O.J.'s place in order to obtain some of his items of clothing in order to frame him. Our break of the century, or as I call it, a windfall, occurred January 17th, 1994, when the Northridge earthquake hit the area. By the way, I believe it was actually January 19th. I'd have to check that. I believe it was January 19th, 1994. I believe this is a misprint. It scared the expletive deleted out of some of the kinsmen who had never experienced one. This 6.8 shock gave us an opportunity to slip into the fortress and gain access to his bedroom upstairs. He wasn't home, and the maid was all that stood between us and our snooping. We told her we were assessing damage to the phone system. Quickly, we planted our leading edge technology bugs into O.J.'s phone system. We also installed a miniature transmitter in the alarm keypad unit. 2 of these pads were easily located. One was just outside the maid's room. The second outside and to the left of the front entrance where we planted the bug. This bug ultimately sent the security code to our recorder so we could get in to plant evidence and remove the bugs after the hit. Our intrusion also permitted the extraction of some of O.J.'s personal items that we felt met the deliverer's requirements. A pair of dark brown leather gloves that looked like they had been worn, a couple of pairs of black socks, a watch cap, and expensive sports shoes. My attention was drawn to these expensive Bruno Maglis. Grip asked, "Why those? How will they help identify him?" unquote. Who else could afford to wear shoes like these to murder someone? I was in one of those discount clothing stores, and the shoe salesman tried to interest me in a pair of them, one of those Jew salesmen. He said it was a great deal, worth at least $160, can't go wrong, unquote. I wouldn't buy diddle from a Jew. The prosecution will be thinking Simpson from the start, unquote. Grip agreed and added, quote, "Did you ever see such a neat freak? These closets and drawers were like something you'd find in a clothing store. Neat, lined up and full of a variety of clothing." Our ability to get inside allowed us to plant a rather unique telephone interrupt device into his system. All of O.J.'s utilities ran underground into the fortress and required access to the main telephone connection inside. By the way, the fortress is the team's nickname for O.J.'s residence. This location also served as the home for another bug. The device would allow us to temporarily disconnect all incoming and outgoing calls. While they were out, a message would be activated notifying the caller that there was a temporary problem which would be corrected shortly. An old telephone serviceman's trick was used to determine that the bug was working and that O.J.'s number was 476-4619. Cato's 476-1706, and Arnell's would not be deactivated. Cato's and Arnell's would not be deactivated. On our way out, Grip took one of O.J.'s trophies to be used at a later date to prove our involvement. Upon discussing this later with Grip, his explanation was, quote, "Remember that Kennedy case in Florida? The girl took a vase or something to prove she'd been there. In the meantime, he'll blame one of the workers he hired for taking it," unquote. The group also bugged Paula Barbieri. They were also conducting surveillance on Paula Barbieri and apparently planted a bug in her car as well, although they were interrupted in doing this and then relocated the car, which was reported as stolen. Returning to Blood Oath, on one occasion, the enforcer who was following her saw an opportunity to place a homing device and voice recorder in her vehicle. He was interrupted while in process and opted to drive the vehicle to a safer location. That was all.
No.
In every century, there's war. In every century, people get married. In every century, people make a living. In every century, people are surprised that it still goes on the same way. We
Everybody's
keep
just
waiting
calling
for
in
some
now.
radical transformation of the human condition. It is not going to come. We will still fight. We will still love. We will still eat. How we do that, that may change. But we must always focus on what is the permanent. In the 20th century, there was a great war. It began in 1914. It ended in 1945. It transformed the map of the world and transformed the Arab world in particular. It created borders that may not be there. It created cities that hadn't been there. It was a tremendous change in human history. It has now been 70 years since the end of that war. And we cannot understand this moment unless we understand the end of the war and what it gave us. At the end of the war, Europe faced a moral abyss. It had done something unthinkable between 1914 and 1945. 100 million people dead. 100 million people dead. And it confronted itself and asked the question, how could this be? How could we, the most civilized part of the world, have done this? They thought of themselves that way. And they drew two conclusions from the war. The first was that there had to be multinational organizations, that this war occurred because the League of Nations had failed, because at Munich we had been weak. It is because we hadn't stuck together. The second conclusion they drew is that the problem was nationalism, that somehow we must control nationalism before it destroys us. And for 70 years, the primary moral, political, economic project of the world has been to create a world in which the nation state cannot do what it did from 1914 to 1945. To create a world in which the nation state was brought under control. And many of the things we look at, NATO, the European Union, the various entities that came out of the Bretton Woods Agreement, like the IMF and the World Bank, these institutions worked. We know it worked because during that time, there was no Great War. During that time, there was relative prosperity. During that time, it was not a bad time to live. There are not very complicated measures about such matters. But the problem that it posed is that it challenged a fundamental moral principle that had been with us since the French Revolution, the right to national self-determination. And it challenged it in an interesting way. It created NATO, and it created the EU, and it created everything else. But it also created a class we'll call technocrats, a group of people whose right to rule derived from some sort of expertise. They were not elected. They were not answerable in many ways. In some ways they were. But throughout the EU, throughout NATO, throughout the various multinational entities that it created, there was this class of expert. And they were supposed to deliver us for our worst impulses. The problem with this class is there's only one justification for them. They work. They have no justification as representing anyone. They have no justification in terms of moral rights. The only justification for the technocrats is they do a good job. And the problem that happened began in 2 weeks, in 7 weeks, I should say, in 2008. On August 8th, Russia went to war with Georgia. And we suddenly discovered that all of the assumptions about what the world would look like, what geopolitics would look like after 1991, were false. Russia was back. It made war. And the entire international community did nothing to stop them, could not stop them. The second thing happened 7 weeks later. Lehman Brothers collapsed. And with this, we discovered that for all the technocrats who were overseeing the financial industry, for all the technocrats that were monitoring, for all of the financial engineers that were being produced by the Wharton School or for Harvard Business, they were trading things they didn't understand. In 1825, there was a great financial crash in Britain. It occurred because they were buying bonds from Latin American countries that didn't exist. But it didn't matter because they traded them back and forth and they were quite happy until one day they realized it wasn't there. This is what happened with Lehman Brothers. Everyone knew that the price of real estate could only go up, just as they knew that the third world debt crisis could not occur or anything else. And what came out of that crisis was this. The United States, on the whole, handled it fairly well. On a Sunday, the head of the Federal Reserve, Secretary of Treasury, the bankers went into a room, broke several laws, I'm sure, and came up with a solution that opened the banks the next day. No room was large enough to hold all the technocrats of Europe. 8 years after the collapse of Lehman Brothers, Europe still has not come to terms with a solution to the crisis. 8 years after the Russian attack on Georgia, the great multinational institutions still have not come to terms with what to do about Russia.
Hello?
Peace, Mr. Weaver.
Peace. Everybody's there finally?
Most of us are here. We're waiting on 2 more people, but they're in close proximity.
Okay.
So we can start without them and they can join us. Those of us who are here are ready to introduce ourselves.
Yes, go for it.
Well, my name is Christopher Stewart. I serve as the archivist and curator for Father Divine's Library and Museum at Woodmont in Gladwin, which would be the repository of most of the information and most of the historical legacy of the Peace Mission movement. I'll pass the microphone around now.
Peace. My name is Roger Claus. We were here last time, and we're here again, and we're glad to tell you what we know, if anything.
Good to have you back.
Peace. My name is Seraphim, and I was here before, and I'm glad to be with you again. I'll pass the mic to the next brother.
Peace, I'm Graham Westcott. I'm a volunteer co-worker here at Woodmont under Father's Divine's jurisdiction. Glad to do anything that will further the works of Father Divine.
Peace. Peace. My name is Leon Vetter. I'm one of the brothers that have been here with the Peace Mission for quite a while, not necessarily as a spokesman, but I think I can answer some of the questions, and I'll pass the mic on to someone else.
Peace. My name is Sunbeam Reed Dean. I've known Father most of my life. I'm very glad to be here. I wasn't here before. Thank you.
Peace. This is Miss LOVE, and I'm Father Mother's Rosebud, and I am so happy to be here. This is my first time attending this beautiful event. Peace.
Peace.
Peace, my name is David. I've been with the Peace Mission since I was a little boy, and it's my first time, and I'm glad to be here. That's all.
So that's everyone that's present right now.
Excellent. Excellent. Sounds like a full house. Full. Aaron, everyone can hear me fine over there?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I want to start off. Did Father Divine or Mother Divine ever leave any writings behind, like maybe articulating some of the things that are happening in our country today as far as the racial divide, the hate on the rise, or, because that they were in the time when it was really tumultuous as far as civil rights are concerned. Did they ever have any foresight on what the country could be?
Certainly. Let me just tell everyone here that if the Spirit leads you to answer when Mr. Weaver asks a question, just raise your hand and I'll get the microphone to you right away. Yes, Father, Mother, I'll give a little bit and then pass it on to someone else. But certainly Father and Mother left volumes and volumes and volumes of words that are in many ways prescient about the future and about the kinds of situations human beings are going to face. Father spoke about the kinds of conditions that existed in World War I and World War II, and how those conditions would come back even more forcefully if humanity didn't adjust to God's standard, if humanity didn't come up a little bit higher, at least a little bit higher, how those things would come back to us. Father spoke of many things that have come to pass. He spoke of climate change. He spoke of problems with world currency. He spoke of how the interest-based economy, lending economy, ultimately bottoms out and causes a lot of trouble. He had comments about state of Israel at the time of its founding that seemed to be coming true. He had many comments, many comments, and not only are there thousands of pages of messages from Father in many volumes of the New Day. We have some here that fill up one wall that's about 15 feet long, floor to ceiling, of Father's messages, but also about 50,000 letters we have from Father, and that's something that the library is working on now. Anyone else want to address that? What Father and Mother have left us to help guide us in the future as things change? Mr. Graham.
Yeah, I'll try, but Father was involved in a whole lot of civil affairs and setting the standard. He wanted everybody to be unified, and that's what the church is, the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. But the churches were run voluntarily, and
and maintain on a cooperative basis. People live together. That's the standard that Father Divine has called for, without regard to any race, creed, or color. But Father Divine was involved in all phases of life. He had huge followings, huge meetings, in many countries, Australia included. That's where I came from. And in the early days in the 30s, they used to have huge meetings there where the followers would rent the city hall. There were so many, the biggest buildings. Father used to fill Madison Square Garden or the Rockland Palace in New York. But it takes a whole lot of time to get all this together.
Oh yeah.
What Father Divine has done.
Mr. David.
The question that you asked was, did Mother leave any note to anything? Personally, I have called Mother on certain occasions about the political scene that we have been through and what this country is going through now with the political scene. And I felt Father basically set a standard for political and for justice in this country to be a part of that which Father has stood for. Unfortunately, we see just a little bit of what's happening, like with the Fannie Mae conditions of the housing, credit unions, and all these other things that are taking place in different situations, even when it comes to climate control and comes to borders being cleaned. Like I find it amazing now you see commercials, but I don't know how true it is, that you do have certain people privately trying to clean up our beaches and clean up our oceans, certain areas, which Father spoke about. But because of political greed and because of different things, people are polluting the oceans. Pharmaceuticals, the oil companies, they all have a big part in polluting our oceans and our wildlife. Yes. But all these things that I see as what Father was talking about is coming to pass unless we as human beings gird up and earn up to what he is calling us to live for.
Just one little example there. Father said it was in the 1920s when he moved to Sayville, Long Island. He at that time it wasn't a law that you had to park on the side of the road that traffic was going. You didn't have to park facing traffic. And Father said that he always did that as a matter of courtesy. And because he, embodying the God force in a body on this earth, did that, had a kind of resonant effect, like when you throw a stone in the water and it ripples out.
Yeah.
And that because he did it, it became law. The Peace Mission was one of the first groups that ever engaged in sit-ins. The first sit-in had nothing to do with the Peace Mission. It was at a library in Alexandria, Virginia. But Father in Harlem in the 1930s endorsed the followers participating in sit-ins in restaurants where there were unfair labor practices. And that was, the followers didn't do that very much. But one time with God putting his hand in it creates that resonant effect and makes it possible for society to do those things and to step forward and do those things. And similar things with, when Father in the Northeast was purchasing, well, not personally, but the church purchasing all of this real estate and integrating it. This was at the time when Jim Crow in the North was being enforced through real estate law and through FHA redlining. So Father was very much prescient about that and very much engaged directly with it. And people haven't noticed that connection between Peace Mission real estate and how Father was combating Northern Jim Crow in that time period. But he was doing it very directly.
Was he ever
Father was
threatened?
more than 100 years ago, he was ahead of his time, talking about race as a social construct, something that only exists between our ears. So many things, Father is far ahead of humanity. Technology, Father predicted many technologies. He spoke of disappearing airplanes, but long before there were invisible airplanes, long before there were jets that could fly without being seen on these cloaking technologies.
Yes.
He spoke about robot planes delivering goods. Now drones are actually delivering goods. So many things.
Well, he was saying this back in the 30s?
Yes.
That's fascinating. That's absolutely.
And before.
Now, when he was doing the real estate and trying to actually hands-on, rolling up his sleeves, hands-on integration, was he ever threatened with bodily harm by any groups?
Yes, Father personally experienced 32 lynch mobs. He went south in the early years, sometime before the 19 teens. He didn't give exact dates, but he said after Jim Crow came in, he went south and he experienced lynch mobs. Those lynch mobs were of different complexions. Some of them were racially motivated, some of them were religiously motivated. And because this tradition teaches celibacy, some of them were husbands who were upset that their wives had been converted to peace mission concepts of virtue. So Father was bodily victimized by different groups and bore the scars of that on his body. Peace mission members were also threatened by the Klan. They had things like bricks thrown through the window, crosses burned, that sort of thing. But the Peace Mission doesn't focus on the negative, it focuses on
the positive.
The positive and going the positive with God as your ally, going forward in the strength of that. And it certainly gave the Peace Mission a lot of bravery and a lot of courage in those situations. And there are people here who certainly experienced some of that themselves. Miss Faithful.
So,
Peace. I am faithful, purity, truth. We thank Father, Mother, to say that Father said the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God is the source of all supply. It can and it will, as it actually does, satisfy every good desire.
Yes.
We know that God is real. With or without a body, he is just the same. Father did go through a lot for us that we might come up to where he desires us to be. Knowing, striving, he's always with us. If you fall, get up. You know, you don't have to stay there and wallow.
No, keep it moving.
We thank you, dear. It is so true that Father is real, and we know that he is real. And we don't criticize anybody that don't believe that Father is, but we know that he is. And the spirit of the consciousness of the presence of God is the source of all supply. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I personally heard Mother Divine say that when Mother Divine in the second body, who was like complexioned, I personally heard her say that when she entered this country, the immigration official, hearing that she was going to Father Divine, told her to her face, "If you were my daughter, I would break your legs."
Wow.
To prevent that. And she also testified that when she would appear in public, especially the earliest days with Father, she could feel the hostility of other people directed at them.
Oh, yes.
So it's something they both experienced.
Now, did Father or Mother have any concerns about automation or robots kind of taking over the place of natural man and natural woman?
Mr. Leon.
Peace, when you talk about that part of the business of humanity, Father did mention about these things, about things being automated. You wouldn't have to work but 4 hours a week and stuff like that. But the time hasn't come totally to that interval for that to have happened completely. But there are some people still in the world that's going at this 4 hours a day situation. Even your college people that you go to college about, they are not every day 8 hours on the thing, and not just weekly all the ways in the thing. It's a certain channel that they're using to accomplish what they plan on accomplishing in that length of time. But to get back to some of the other things about where you asked about the father in the early days, I was just a youngster then, and being a youngster, the people didn't think that much of me, and I'm glad they didn't, because that's made Father Divine take me in his office at times and sit me down and explain to me those things that were to be accomplished during the years to come. And as someone made mention about the different things of science and invention, Father Divine did not stop the idea of science and invention. In other words, he expected science and invention to actually bring us up to a better state of consciousness. But then when you talk about civil rights and things like that, remember, we had no civil rights at times, all the way up to about 1960 or something like that. And in those days, a lot of times you get in the bus and they tell you to go to the back and all this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And of course, I experienced it, but I was a young fella, so they didn't do me so bad as they did the grown people. Some of them would let me sit in the front with them and stuff like that. Mm. But nevertheless, in coming through these eras of situation, we have seen plateaus being arrived at by Father Divine's followers, causing certain things to come about, to challenge many things in the courts and different places, and come out victorious. And this is an ongoing situation yet. And we thank Father Divine and Mother Divine for showing us the way that we should live and be in order to be the people that God made. And I think I'll pass it on to the next one.
Mr. Roger.
Mr. Weaver, we can hear your children in the background there.
Yes, they just got home from Grandma's house. The live studio audience is in effect. Well, actually, they're in my son's room. Actually, they're one room over. But the thing about it that I find most fascinating about Father and Mother is the time in which they lived in. They were able to touch so many people's heart. Hold on, we have a caller. Hello, caller. Hold on 1 second. Let me okay.
How you doing, Cool Pat?
Yes. Hey, caller, you got a question?
Yes, I do. Excuse me, sir. Also, Pat, I really don't know about Father Divine. Never really heard of him.
Oh, he was well, this is what the show's about. He was a man.
Date of birth?
I don't know.
Date of departure or extension?
Dr. Stewart, can you hear the question from the caller?
Yes. Well, we don't call Father Divine an MAN. We don't regard him as a mortal. Right. We regard Father Divine as the incarnation of God. And Father, the earliest that we know Father teaching publicly was 1912. But we know he was active before then. We know that he married Mother in the first body, spiritual marriage, in 1882, and he threw off the body in 1965. So that's the range of his ministry, and he was especially active from 1919 when he moved to Sayville, Long Island, until bodily till 1965. The Peace Mission had extended all over the world, so they were centered in the northeast of the United States. There were thousands of followers in tens of thousands in the New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area, which was the locus of the Peace Mission, but thousands also throughout the United States in places like Australia, Switzerland, Germany, many Panama, Nigeria, Caribbean islands, and then contacts throughout the world. We have letters showing that even from the 20s, before Father was in the newspapers, people were writing to him. We don't know how they knew about him, writing to him from places like Alexandria, Egypt, and Greece and Russia. We don't know how they knew, but they somehow knew. Father was considered, people who treated him favorably without calling him God acknowledged that he was a great mystery. I mean, this is a phenomenon that's very difficult to understand or explain, because he burst on the scene, already a legend, and he just drew people. Starting about 1932, thousands of people just started pouring into his presence from all over the world. People, and they were so deeply affected. Thousands of them gave up their ordinary lives to join in his work. The Peace Mission fed cumulatively millions of people during the Great Depression, either gratis or for a very low cost. The Peace Mission restaurant sold food for 5 and 10 cents. The Peace Mission established hotels and all kinds of businesses to help people. And that's what a lot of people who know about Father know, that he was a major force for social relief in the darkest time this country had economically. And he did that to show us how we could do it. He said, you can do this. He said, what I have done not supernaturally, but by enacting the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States.
Wow. Did that answer your question?
We can do.
I got another caller actually on the.
Not really at all, sir.
Well,
but no disrespect.
Do you have another question?
Well,
Mr.
yes.
David.
Where is Noble Drew Ali during the time of Father Divine? Because I think there is some kind of correlation within that timeline. Say about the 1933 stock market crash due to the 1928 land mandate from Havana, Cuba. Other than that, Nagapad, your show is rocking. Please drop my ranch. And then, and let me add on one last thing. Once you know about I, self, law, am master, you stand on your square in front of the courtroom, the spirituality will already come with that. And it's too easy from Alexandria, Egypt. And then just go with the Yakub theory, if that will help anyone.
Well,
Hotep Naga.
Well, thank you. Hold on. We got another caller as well. Hold on. That's kind of weird. I can only take one phone call at a time. Hello, Brother Judah. Welcome to the show. I'm sorry about that. I can only take one phone call at a time. But you have
yeah. I wanted to ask a question. Hello?
Yeah. Dr. Stewart, can you hear the caller?
Yes.
Yes, they can hear.
Yeah, I want to ask a question about the Jim Jones attempted coup with the People's Temple back in 1971 with the declining health of Father Divine. I wanted to talk about that period.
But passing it over to Mr. David right now.
Peace. I understand you're wondering about the Jim Jones saga versus Father. The name popped up in that movie. James Earl Ray, also a movie star. James Earl Jones, also the movie star. Personally, I believe because of Hollywood and because of who Father Divine was and Father Divine is to those of us who truly believe and know that he was the panacea for this condition of religion. He was the panacea for economic stimulus, and he was the stimulus for a working body people of an earned wage. When I think about Jim Jones and I think about that movie, it was terrible. But the horrible thing about that is that they try to put father in all kinds of different dilemmas, using that what father has done in the good sense as a bad sense. I mean, as I look at the years of father serving the people and using what he's using to heal the people, it had nothing to do with Jim Jones. Father Divine has nothing at all to do with that.
Mr. Graham.
Okay. Thank
Yeah, Jim Jones tried to emulate what Father was doing in actuality. He made out he was a healer and had a whole gathering of people that volunteered their time and life and service like Father Divine did. But he was a fake. Father Divine
sincere.
was the genuine. There's always a copy.
Yes.
He came here pretending to be what he is, and Mother Divine, I personally remember calling him the other fellow. We don't use the word DVL,
Ooh.
the Antichrist, and put him out of our meetings. He came into our meetings.
Do you think that he was sent in?
People.
I mean, sent in purposely by like the government or to try to take down the movement?
Jim Jones' first contact with the Peace Mission was in the 1950s, and he, at that time, just seemed like an ordinary minister. And Father Divine received hundreds or thousands of ministers over the years, and he gave them advice how they could preach the gospel and how they could function at cooperative economics and that sort of thing. But we now know from Jim Jones' biographers that he was pathological even from childhood. They say that he tortured animals, and people who went to school with him when he was a child say that he was monstrous and strange. And so we think he was a sociopath from the very beginning, and he seems to have set out to be a predator. When Father threw off the body, he started not just simply being an occasional visitor every few years whenever he chanced to be near Philadelphia, but he started to get the idea that he could take over the Peace Mission. And he didn't understand that Mother Divine is Father Divine. The same spirit that is manifested in Father Divine is manifested in Mother as the Divine Mother. And he didn't understand that at all. And he didn't understand that the followers regarded Mother as a divine authority, and he thought that he could wrest power from her. He told lies about her. He took the New Day and took all of the advertising addresses in the New Day and had his followers write offensive, scurrilous letters to the advertisers to try to get them to stop supporting the New Day, which didn't really work. He made up stories about Mother to try to undermine her leadership. And with all of the effort he made, he seduced away less than 10 followers, and some of those did die with him. But seems that those were not ever true followers. Jim Jones is really quite the opposite of Father Divine, and that's one reason I also call him an antichrist. He's sort of a perversion of everything that Father stands for. Father uplifted all people, but Jim Jones was, although he had a racial integration face on, he was really a genocidal maniac, and he ultimately, we know he's a prophet of death, and Father Divine is not a prophet of death. Father Divine doesn't give any consciousness to death. Members of the Peace Mission do not plan to die. Suicide is one of the greatest sins they could commit. It's absolute. He was to try to seduce Father's followers into a path that ends in suicide. It's just absurd. That's just as far away from Father's teachings as you can get. And one interesting thing is he came here in the 1970s. It was his final big attempt. And he came to the Divine Lorraine Hotel, Crystal Dining Room there, and proclaimed himself God. And he got laughed out. But when he did that, he revealed himself for what he was. And that's when Mother gave this ultimatum that he was never to be welcomed in any peace mission establishment. His known followers were not to be welcomed in any peace mission establishment. And when she stood at the table here at Woodmont and gave that ultimatum, there was a sister named Miss Pern who stood up and said something very prophetic. She said, she referred to the serpent in the garden and the subtle tricks of the serpent. And she said, Jim Jones is trying to get you to commit suicide. She said that at least 6 years before what happened in Guyana. So the Spirit was really working with those who were open to it and letting them know what was going on. And very, very few followers were seduced into that terrible mistake.
Yes, most terrible.
So that's what we know about it.
Wow. Well, thank you. I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you, True Power.
You're welcome, brother, and thank you for the call. At the height of the movement, what was the membership?
The fully consecrated membership of the Peace Mission, that is people who are living in Peace Mission extensions and endeavoring to fully live the life that Father taught, was around 30,000 people.
That is a mighty number. That is especially in those days where we didn't have Facebook, mass communication. That's word of mouth, people speaking with conviction to another person, telling them. So let's get on to solution. What is some of the solution, how we can help manifest the vision of both mother and father for this day, 2019?
You're the expert.
Well, Father points back to the Sermon on the Mount again and again. Father says that the Sermon on the Mount is the constitution of the kingdom of God. And if we can live those rules, it really boils down to the most simple: love God and love your neighbor with all your heart. Put those things above yourself. That's what it boils down to. If you want the same message that God has been fighting to give us for tens of thousands of years, and that we keep missing. But
and why is that, Doctor? Why do we keep missing this fundamental message that could free us all from the sorrow and pain?
Why did Lucifer fall?
Wow.
Good.
Wow.
Right.
Because of enviness and self-deceit. Now, it is okay. Are women held to the same standard in the organization as men? Or like how the Catholics have the women separate than the men and all that. Are women held to the same moral standard as men?
Yes. Yes, maybe one of our sisters would like to address that.
Yeah.
In practical terms, it's the majority of followers were women. There were more women followers than male followers by far, at all points. And the movement has, in practical terms, Father's tier of managers, many of them women. Women have done a lot of this work, taken care of a lot of the practical business concerns from the very beginning. This has been a movement in which women's leadership has been highly valued from the very beginning. Father foregrounded that from the very start.
Wow. So he wasn't a misogynist at all, like, certain You know how certain people always want to put women like down. He tries to uplift.
Yes, yes. In the very early days, Father referred to so-called men, so-called women, in just the same way that he referred to so-called WHITE and so-called BLACK. It's the soul is the same.
Yes.
The body is a different expression, but the soul is the same. Here are some sisters to speak to that.
Peace, I'm faithful. Okay. This truth is real. It's nothing, we're not coerced or anything. It's our choice. When we came in the mission, it was our own choice. If we were in a family, it was our choice to come in. Nothing to join, We don't have an organization. You can come or you can go. Whatever you do it for the will of God. I thank you to say that this life is great. It's rich. I wanted the truth. I got the truth. I wanted purity, to live this righteous and holy life, and it's wonderful. Yes. I want the faith. I had to keep the faith. In order to get a name, you have to live it before you get it. So I thank you to continue to live it and be what God wants us to be. I came from a large family, but it's my choice to come in. Not everyone came in, but nothing say, oh, you come, you join. Nothing you join. You want to live the life and do his will, saying not my will, but your will be done. It is a wonderful life to live. It's nothing forced than anybody else. And it's wonderful. This peace is wonderful. This happiness is wonderful. So we just thank you to continue to live this righteous and holy life. Wonderful to live. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. This is Miss Love, LOVE. And one thing I have to say that we don't talk about women and brothers. We are angels. We are in the angelship degree. And we have a life that we don't see us as brothers and sisters. We see us angels, everybody in the highest state of consciousness and the upper state of consciousness. And this is the most wonderful life it is to be Father's Rosebud. We have rosebuds here. We have crusaders all gathered around us right now. And we do not see each other as brothers and sisters. We just see us angels. We have to come in the upper state of consciousness. Peace.
Wow. I just want to add to what Sister Love or Miss Love just said there. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. You're trying to get past this physical meat bag that we all have to use to operate, to get into the spirit, to see with these physical eyes the spiritual presence of the next human being. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Mr. Weaver.
Yes.
Mr. Weaver, we're still talking about the sisters and the brothers of the peace mission. Well, Father didn't put a limitation on the sisters. The Divine Lorraine Hotel, the manager of the hotel, they were sisters. Many of them were sisters, as I know of. And Divine Tracy Hotel, the manager of that hotel on 36 in Chestnut Street, which we don't no longer own right now. But for many, many years, the manager of the women, with the cars, we had women chauffeurs, sister chauffeurs, chauffeuring the cars, the big limousines that they used to ride in before these other buses came about, CCT and all the other buses came about. But the chauffeurs and chauffeuresses, and they were carrying a lot of people in those cars. And Father never put a limitation on the sisters. As a matter of fact, she encouraged them to do jobs and do things that the brothers could do. So, they were one of the first ones to hold high positions, like I said, the manager in the hotel, 10-story hotel, Divine Lorraine Hotel, Divine Fairmont Hotel, and Fairmont City.
Wow.
Fairmont in New Jersey, and all of the Jersey City and all those places. And besides just being cooks and laundresses, and they held high positions in the churches, and even church officers. So Father encouraged them to use their mind and their abilities and take it to the limit.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add those few words. Thank you.
I like it. It seems like because of this, like back then, women were, you can't work here, ma'am. You can't do this job. But it seems like he was ahead of his time, even in that aspect of empowering women in the organization.
Yes, and Father, you have to also consider when you think about other religions as points of comparison, the Peace Mission does not have embodied clergy. Our pastor is Father, Mother Divine. And nobody stands between an individual when it comes to spiritual matters. Nobody stands between. Now we have work managers, who oversee people who doing certain tasks. But when it comes to your spiritual life, nobody stands between you and God. So if any man came in here and tried to tell these sisters how to live their lives, they wouldn't be happy. And Father. Teaching celibacy, early in the 20th century, this was free. This was giving women another way of life that they didn't have to be dependent on a husband or a father or a son. They were able to, be powered by God and to go out and be independent. And Father encouraged women to be independent, encouraged men to be independent. Father also, our sisters are modest. They dress modestly. They tend not to wear makeup. They have natural hair. They have all of these kind of things that go along with, they're not setting themselves up to be objects of men's desires. Right. That's part of their independence. So that's a piece of it too, an important piece of it. Mr. David has something to say too.
Yeah, I thank Father for the gender factor where we didn't look at each other, male and females. We looked at each other as God's children. These are my brothers. These are my sisters, and Father and Mother are our Father and Mother God, and that they're leading us not only spiritually, but physically and mentally to be sound and productive in society. I thank Father, Mother, that, as you look and you see the world today, females, sisters are holding positions that men no longer hold. There's something's going on in the air, in the atmosphere, in the world, where women are right now becoming the entrepreneurs of societies, running companies, and everything that the Father had established in the Peace Mission, outside of these people being married or being coerced. They're doing it on a different level. So there's a lot going on. And you just thought about, you talked about earlier about lives that matter. Yes, Father was always saying that human life matters. Yes. It would be a wonderful world if we could stop the bloodshed.
Yes.
In our streets right here today, of the so many violence that are taking places in neighborhoods, that our young people are being murdered. And I have a little cliche that it goes like this a little bit. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what shirt you wear. If you have a uniform in your mind that makes you crime, then it doesn't care where you are. You're going to be just that. And a lot of people all over this United States can figure out what I just said.
Wise words.
You can figure it out what I just said. Because just because you have a uniform and a badge does not change the world.
Exactly.
It takes integrity to change the world.
Yes.
It takes pride.
Yes.
And it takes God to be in the individual.
Yes,
and that's what Father tried to teach us, and that's how the Peace Mission flowed. I mean, when you look at some of the old movies and you see how New York City was, how crowded it was, everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew who Father Divine was. He prevailed all of Harlem. Even though everything was going uptown, downtown, down Madison, they did not bother Father Divine's people because Father Divine had her standard. And even though when they came out with the movie Bumpy and the Harlem Nights and all that other stuff, they only showed clips of Father, but they did not touch Father by any means. But it was time for Father to move on and move out into the atmosphere of where he started to bring something else about, which we are now proud to do in the city of brotherly love as the cradle of democracy, where it all started at and where Father is seated, high and lifted up.
Mr. Leon.
And talking about gender, like you were talking about, you must remember that God created all of this situation, all of humanity. Yes. Therefore, it had to be a time that he would come and redeem women as well as he did men. And this is the time for that to happen. And exposure of what we've been hearing the last number of years about people in high places as well as one in the low places has proven to the fact that we haven't been listening to God's message from even the time of Jesus. Because Jesus asked the fellas when the woman was at the pool there, they wanted to kill her. And Jesus asked for the men, the first one to throw a stone, if he had been involved in something like that. and none of them threw any stones. So that's what they should be listening to and looking at to try to improve humanity now. But I'll get away from that a little bit and express this fact that the Father spoke of the uniting of the three Americas, which wouldn't have had the same as going on now. But all these walls here, and you just told the Nazis or the Russians from breaking down that wall in Berlin there, right, and in Germany. Now, why would you go put up a wall after you've seen all that happen and then trying to force the people a certain way? Just help the government to improve themselves. That's what you're supposed to be spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ all over the world, and also allowing for the people to be lifted and put them down by all this here taxation and stuff. So thank you, Father and Mother. I want to get away from that a little bit, but he did speak about it. He's working on it.
I do have a question from the chat room. They say, was Father Divine a high-ranking Prince Hall Mason?
No. Father wasn't a member of any established church or any established political party or any established fraternal orders.
There it is. Hopefully that answered your question out there. I mean, see, this is what happens when people only get their information from other sources instead of going right to the source. I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to actually speak and discuss these things. Now, did Father ever talk about UFOs? Because you've seen in the news lately all these UFOs and extraterrestrial things. Did he ever speak of life outside of Earth, other than like heaven or hell?
Yes, definitely. Father said that there's life on other planets. He said that Ms. Seraphim reminds me that Father said that the Earth would be the last planet to be redeemed. No, he said it was the last planet to be redeemed, that all other planets had already been redeemed.
What exactly does that mean, Doctor? What exactly does redemption mean?
I understand it. My personal understanding of it is that there's a vast extended universe out there, and everybody in it except us is in harmony with the Creator.
So
we are the ones who are not.
In the whole universe?
We're the last. Well, not that we'll be the last. There may be other new planets that come after us, but the others that are already existing have advanced. They've developed. They've done what they were expected to do.
It's like we're the slow kids in the class.
Yes. Mr. Graham has a comment.
Yeah, I have a letter from Father Divine while I was in Australia when I think it was probably late 50s or early 60s. A lot of rumors going around in the newspapers about UFOs and flying saucers. And I wrote to Father Divine, and I was sort of taken in by it. Father says, do not be persuaded by what you see in the papers. Words to this effect, there is nothing to it in UFOs and flying saucers and all that. But he said all governments are engaged in scientific exploration, and you can, just to trust them. So far, there's been nothing definite proven. A lot of hype talk. That's all I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is another source too for Father that says something very similar, where someone asked Father about UFOs. He told them that the flying craft that people are seeing on this planet are not from other planets. He did say that there is life on other planets throughout the universe, but he did say that the UFOs are not, the UFOs that people are seeing are not from other planets.
They're from
that
our
they are
planet.
originating from this planet. So, and it's not something that we focus on. These are just, we don't want to give that too much emphasis, because these are really just offhand comments that Father made over decades and decades and decades. He didn't give extended messages about UFOs. He didn't have people looking up at the sky waiting on UFOs or anything of that sort. He did say that we would advance technologically. By the year 2525, he said that humanity would have developed a vanishing city, some kind of very large flying craft. But again, that's something that humanity develops. It's not something that's coming from another world to us.
Exactly. I mean,
and I personally think if we are the slow kids in the class, he's probably got us sequestered. And we're not supposed to influence those people until we come up to the standard.
Exactly, because we're dangerous. We're dangerous until we heal the savage street in our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to ourselves and definitely other life forms potentially that we could cross. But the thing I like about that explanation you gave, even though it's tongue in cheek, I talk to many different people from all over the world, and what many of us do not realize is we're about 30 to 45 years behind the real technology on this planet. So in other words, back in the 1980s, they already had in certain areas, the big screen plasma TVs, the cell phones, that were smaller and more efficient. But we get all this stuff later. And I find it fascinating. He had the foresight to see the automation threat, to understand this UFO is going to be a way to debase people from spirituality and have people focus on the physical realm. Whether you call it a UFO, you call it a flying saucer, you're not focusing on the spiritual, eternal things. You're still focusing on a finite material object.
Yes. And he said similar things about psychic phenomena. And he said, it's real. There are psychic planes and everything, but don't get lost in it. Don't give your mind, heart, and attention to that too much, because you'll get lost in it. You have to. God is supposed to be our focus, and we're supposed to attend the practical things of life with God in our mind and hearts, and to give as much of our control of our bodies as possible to God,
right?
So that God can live in us, through us.
That's the real power you have, is the power to control self. Now, did Father and Mother give us any warnings, dire warnings? If we don't do A, then B or C will happen?
Yes.
Could you share some with us?
Miss Sunbeam.
Peace. I was thinking about 60 or 70 years ago, when Father suggested the unification of the three Americas, and at that time, it was back in 1938 or 39, and it made no sense at all. Actually, they made fun of it. But now you can see that the deplorable conditions at the southern border, which is unimaginable, deplorable. You had in this country, I had never heard of anything. Well, I think it's worse than war to have those people detained like that, and they're blaming each other because of it. But anyway, I'm thinking that Father suggested, if not the unification of the three Americas, Father suggested that America purchase Central and South America. So there would be a unification. And it made no sense at all. But if you go to the border today, you would see Father was like, what, 70 or 80 years ahead. If they're like they said just now, are there consequences? Yes, this is the consequences that we have now because we didn't listen to Father. People getting drowned and dying at the border and blaming each other for it. I mean, we're at a point now that we're like midstream. We don't know which way to go.
Right.
But Father can solve the problem if they listen to Father. But I don't think they are ready for that. And another thing I was thinking about, I think they want me to stop. But another thing that was saying that the Father Divine does not say he's God, but his followers say that. Well, I read quite a bit about Father, and Father comes out and says who he is. And why they haven't seen it like we saw it, I don't know. I was reading the other night where Father just plainly came out and said he's God, or he'll say, my son Jesus. So now what is that? Okay, thank God.
I just want to say, this is Seraphim again. I just want to add, we're advancing pretty good technologically, and that's really, really wonderful. But if we don't advance spiritually, it can be detrimental to it, because the technology can like backfire on us.
Yes.
So you have to have a pure, righteous mind in order to use the advancement of technology to make life better. That's what I'm trying to say. You get the point. We really have to advance be more spiritual.
Yes.
And everybody can do it. Not especially be a follower of Father Divine. But Father says to live the Sermon on the Mount, that's for everybody. Read the Sermon on the Mount that's found in the 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters of St. Matthew. That's the basic of all the religions, that immortal sermon that Jesus gave. And I just thought I would just add that for. Okay, thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh.
This is Mr. Roger again, Mr. Beaver. It's been mentioned several times about the Sermon on the Mount. If you want to know what we can do in 2019 to improve the world's situation, we can advocate living just exactly as what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. And some of the other things he said that weren't on the Sermon on the Mount, like pay as you go and owe no man.
Yes. Yes, no debt.
Had we done just that, we wouldn't be $21 trillion in debt.
Whoa.
and we wouldn't be living on credit cards, buying things that we can't afford.
Right, with money
and
we don't have.
allowing banks to continue to raise interest rates so that we never get out of debt. Things like that. I mean, Jesus wouldn't stand for any of that.
No, he would.
And Father Divine and Jesus are identical. And Jesus said he was the firstborn among many brethren. So what's the problem? I mean, why do you have any problem recognizing God in a person? Jesus said he was the firstborn among many brethren. That doesn't mean they all had the same mother. That means the spiritual brethren of life. We're all spiritual beings. Our problem is advancing in the spiritual life in order to keep up with the technical life, like Miss Seraphim was speaking about. When Father and Mother Divine were first married, that's when the first computer was invented.
Wow.
And since that time, just since 1945, it's unimaginable all of the things that we have been blessed with to manage carefully so that we don't kill ourselves.
That's so true. But you know, to add to that, this show tonight would not be possible if it were not for computers. But this show's being done in sincerity and love versus trying to dominate and destroy. You know, and so I see what you're saying. It's all about in what spirit do you do a thing? Do you do a thing for greed and evil or selflessness?
Yeah, when you mentioned the word dominate, one time I asked Mother about why there's more sisters, so many more sisters than there are brothers in the churches. And Mother said something to the effect that those in the likeness of men have always dominated. And now the tide is turning and the Spirit is calling for equality, not only racial equality, but gender equality.
Absolutely.
And so here we are in the middle, and we're scratching our head trying to figure out why. But if you look back through history, you will be able to see that God is in every person according to their conviction and according to their spiritual unfoldment. And our best idea is to get along with everyone in the world and love thy neighbor as the second commandment tells us to.
Wow. You know, when you said that right there, if we could only get to this one part, when we remember, no matter if you strike down a man or woman out of anger or out of protection or out of aggression, the world becomes poor because the soul is gone. If that makes any sense.
Well, and also if there was a possibility of hurting God, we definitely do that every day by hurting our fellow man.
Yes. You know, the Father and Mother talk about the mark of the beast by chance, you know, with the new microchips coming out to get into your job or whatever.
Well, Father didn't link those two things. When Father spoke about the only reference I know for sure where Father mentions the mark of the beast, you know that when that passage appears in Revelation, it says it's the number of a man. It's the number of a man. Father interpreted that as human beings trying to usurp the place of God, just like they did at the Tower of Babel, just like Lucifer attempting to usurp the place of God. It was a consciousness in which man places himself above God. That's what I remember from Father speaking about the mark of the beast.
So it's not like how we think of it then, like where this guy, the Antichrist, and his whole like armies behind him. This is more like anybody could be the Antichrist.
Well, Father, yes. Yeah, and one of the epistle writers tells us the Antichrist is with you even now. I mean, that's 2,000 years ago he's saying to one of the churches, the Antichrist is with you even now. So this is a spirit. This is another spirit, and it can take bodies in the same way that God can take bodies, and it comes again and again and again. In Father's time, the embodied time, the big Antichrist was Adolf Hitler. Father has told us that the scriptures, Christian scriptures, if we will have it, are fulfilled from cover to cover, and that Armageddon was the World War I, World War II periods, and he came in the midst of them. He became publicly known in between the two world wars, and that is. But you can read the Bible two ways. You can read the Bible and see the things happening just once in history, or you can see them as patterns that happen again and again and again. And Hitler was one big Antichrist. Jim Jones was a little Antichrist. You know, these if your Father manifests the Christ in this world, and reactively the other fellow tries everything he can, and there's all kinds of big and little Antichrists that went after Father. But when it comes to the part in Revelation about buying and selling, I think it's linked to the fact that Father wanted the peace mission to pay cash, not to have debts, not to pass everything through bankers and so forth, but to pay cash. And so if the world had listened to Father and kept that cash-based economy, that scheme that's in Revelation wouldn't be possible.
To buy and sell
right?
everything. Right. You know, did Mother or Father ever were concerned about debt being another form of slavery?
Sure. Yes.
Or how did they articulate that exactly?
Well, recently in a letter, everyone's saying "pay as you go and owe no man." That's one of Father's lines that he reiterates over and over again, and he provided the example of that, and the peace mission operated that way. And you know, it was the most economically successful cooperative movement in American history, and with 30,000 people, it was the largest.
Wow!
And so it really worked. It worked.
I saw the paper that you sent me where the woman wrote to Father, you know, Father, I finally got my act together. I'm off welfare. In fact, I sent the state back $19, what she got from welfare at that time. And I thought that was amazing.
Yes, and there are thousands and thousands of those letters. Father, you know, a lot of preachers say, if you have those kind of debts in your past, that the way to make up for it is give money to the church. Right. Preachers there saying, give it to me. But Father didn't say that. Father said, pay the person you owe.
Right. Give Caesar
pay
what
the person you owe. The followers would have given that money to Father if he had said to. But Father didn't take collections. He said, give it to the person you owe it to.
Wow.
Yes, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of letters to prove it. Letters and receipts. We've got the receipts.
But see, I think the problem is, Doctor, is that people see how, you know, big of a house he had. And most people think like was one of these, you know how these big time preachers are down south, you know, these huge mega churches, like they're a total scam. You go in there with $1 and you come out with nothing. All right. That's what they do.
Right.
And people see the wealth that Father and Mother was able to acquire. I think they just don't know how they got it. And so they assume that they had to get it from the members.
Well, for one thing, this is not personal wealth. This big house here at Woodmont, Father has his bedroom, his bathroom, a big closet, and his office. And every other inch of this space was collectivized. Peace mission spaces, all of these mansions were purchased collectively by followers. Followers owned them, they held the title to them, and they shared them. They lived in them, they shared them, and that's how Father lived. I know Miss Sunbeam remembers when Father had followers offered to him a beautiful mansion on Madison Avenue in New York, and he let me give her the microphone to tell you that.
Okay.
Father personally he resided at this place in Harlem, in the heart of Harlem, no less. And Father stayed there. And he came, he'd go here and he'd go there in his mission. And he'd always come back to this place that would be not really desirable, but Father stayed with his children. He stayed with us at all times. And the followers thought at that time, I feel, that Father should have a mansion. So somehow they got together and purchased this beautiful mansion on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, New York. And Father used to serve banquets there at times, but every night he would always go back to this place, that 126th Street in the heart of Harlem, and he'd stay with his children there. And he'd work sometime and interview all night long. But he always came back to this place where his children were. And he proved to us that way that he really loved us and he wanted to be with us. And we wanted to be with him just as we do today. And someone else offered Bob a mansion on 105th Street, a beautiful little place they purchased for Father. And Father never stayed there. Father always wanted to stay with his children. And so there was a great love for Father by us at the time. And right now, too.
See, the lesson that Father is teaching us through all of these big, beautiful estates and everything is that if we cooperate, if we harmonize, we can have this, we can share this.
There it is.
If everybody wants a 70-acre estate all for themselves, for their little private family, well, we can't have that. There's not enough space on the planet for everybody to have that. But if we come together and share and cooperate, we can all have access to beautiful things. We can all have access to wonderful food. We can all have access to beautiful music. Cooperation, harmonization, unity, unity, unity. This is what Father preaches. Harmonization is the mystery of all supply.
I love it. I love it. It's what I'm all about. It's self-empowerment, but unity. You get power in unity. You get your power from your unity on righteousness.
Yes. There's a song about that, Mr. Roger said. This is Mr. David. Even on that level that we're speaking on, Father has spoken it. It had went out in the air. Even in this country, y'all may not take notice of it, like the Chinese people, the Chinese stores in certain areas around the country, they take cash because cash is the way. And that cash not only makes a way for them to help their family, it also helps them empower economically.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand that Father says that the currency, if you're in harmonize with it, it will be harmonizing with you. So at the same time, you look at the people and we look at our industry as far as the steel goes. Well, most of our steel right now, even though we have ore in this country, is being bought by China.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that, undercoverly, Father has shown himself spiritually for people to use that. I would call it a panacea of making things happen for those you love. And my parents used to say, oh, the little people, that's what they call the Chinese people or the Oriental people, because they're shorter than the most average people. The little people going to come over here and they're just going to just take over everything. Well, the little people has a system of saying, we don't want your credit. We want your cash, because your cash will turn into our yen, but our yen will turn into something else, and we will make what needs to be made for the people. And believe it or not, I think they choose to be where they are, to serve where they are, because of economics and because they love people. Because you have to have the love of people like Father to serve and sit and talk, and you have to have a lot of love to do and travel like Father has. And they said sometimes Father would not sleep. He would just go from one place to the next place to the next place to the next place. But he showed most love. It was love that he was showing.
Did he ever travel outside the United States, or was it always in the United States?
To our knowledge, he did not bodily travel outside the United States.
Okay. So it was pretty much here. It's just so fascinating that he was able to do this in such an era of hate. I mean, like if he was to go down to the deep south, you know, it's a miracle that he came back out.
Yes. Yes. And it's a miracle. It's a miracle that after Father was publicly known, the everybody in these positions of power was trying to entrap him, trying to arrest him, trying to keep him in behind bars, and they were never able to. This dark complexioned body in 1930s in this country, they tried. They could not kill him. They could not keep him behind bars. That is a miracle.
Yes, because a lot of brothers did not fare the same way. A lot of people, humans, just in general, did not fare that well in that decade of this country. You know, we heard about Little Wall Street, Rose, you know, whole cities being burnt down over hate. And let's keep it what it is. They burn it down over hate. And for people to come together as the international peace mission movement have, and will, and surely will to come, continue to do this work. It's a testament to the love of humanity at this point by the members who love humanity, because you guys do what you do because you love Father and Mother, obviously, but you also love the rest of us on the planet as well.
Thank Father and Mother.
I didn't mean the filibuster.
Mother, I know Mother said Father came, materially speaking, with nothing. No money, no ancestors, no name to recommend him. But the miracle is all that he achieved. I mean, think about the politicians who came begging for Father to endorse them. You know, powerful people like Mayor LaGuardia coming to Father Divine, coming every mayor of Philadelphia for many years, coming to Father Mother Divine. You know, it was the power. He had no worldly education, nothing like that. It was the power of his spirit that drew the people to him, that created this power, and the world recognized it, and they couldn't keep him down. They could not keep him down. He was a threat to the social order because he provided a real alternative that was working, that was growing, that was feeding the people, empowering the people. He was registering them to vote, all of this. And
he was a civil rights worker before it was cool to be one. You hear? He was a civil rights worker before it was cool to be one. You know, I one of the most powerful pictures is when I first met you, Dr. Stewart, and I started researching, is when I came across that picture of that dining hall where you had a white woman and then maybe a black man and then a Hispanic, and it's just all the different people there, and they were all eating. And the thing about it, this was during the heart of the Great Depression. He had this huge feast. It was such a powerful picture.
Right. We don't use.
Uh-oh. What the? Hello?
Hey, Pat.
Hold on. Oh, no, I messed up. Hello?
We lost the connection there.
I'm sorry about that. A phone call.
Peace?
I hit the wrong wrong button. Sorry about that. Terribly sorry. Hello? Okay. Oh no. Oh no. Come on. No. Oh, AT&T, I hate you. Peace, brothers and sisters. I'm so sorry about that. The phone call came in. I hit the wrong button and it disconnected. Terribly sorry.
But you're right. Father inspired that kind of integration of complexions at a time when
Oh, God. No, damn it. Hey, I'm doing it. Damn it. Oh my God. Why am I getting this? Hold on.
you see there, the other fellow sharing with that technology still doesn't want us to live together.
I'm trying my best to keep this technology. This is just too much. Hold on. Oh my gosh. I got too much on this phone running. Everything's terribly low. I don't understand why is it so low? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's just really low on this side. I don't understand why. Hold on, let me. Uh-oh. Oh no.
It dropped off a lot.
Oh no, you're still there. I thought it dropped off, but you're still there. I can hear you. I'm just trying to. I don't understand why is it so quiet now. You guys were coming in loud and clear, and now it's really quiet.
Well, so my voice is low right now.
Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna I'll try to boost it up some kind of way. Maybe it reset the Bluetooth speaker. Sorry about this, folks. I'm terribly sorry. That's why I need to be more than this one-man show. I need people to yell out, how could you make this happen? No, I think that's as loud as it gets. All right. Well, we'll just tap to return. Okay. You're still there?
I don't know. Yeah.
All right. I think it should be fine. We should be able to hear you. Like I said, this new mic is really good. It's really powerful. So I know we roll. Hold on. I need to see where we're at on time. Okay. Well, so we did about like an hour, I think, hour 30 minutes or 13 minutes or so. One not final question. But did Mother or Father Divine ever warn about Russia and China military prowess? How militarily strong these two countries are getting? Uh-oh. Hold on.
Didn't endorse any of this communistic. he advocated democracy very strongly and warned us against communism, communist influences. Called them infidels on one occasion. But yeah, Father was very much for democracy and the American Constitution and the amendments. I don't know if somebody else might elaborate.
It was the fact that Father spoke about more or less Russia more than China in the beginning, but as China got to be one of the main ones at the UN, you know,
there was 5 countries that was not supposed to be able to be vetoed or nothing like that. Russia and China was part of it. And at the time that Chiang Kai-shek was in office there in China, Father told them that they should back Chiang Kai-shek so that the communists wouldn't take over the island, the mainland, I should say. And they wouldn't back Mr. Chiang Kai-shek, and he was forced to go to Formosa, which they call another country now. But but after he got at Formosa, then they decided they would help him to stay at Formosa rather than come back to the mainland. And they China took that veto power that he had there as the head of the Chinese country and give it to the communists. Well, that was a bad thing, see, because that meant that Russia and them could bypass a lot of the orders that was produced at the UN. And so Father was against that, but it was also against all this thing, like trying to agree with them on so many things. You know, democracy was always in the order that we are involved with. We don't believe in this thing of communism where one person can run over everybody else and all this thing, country-wise or any other way. And that's the thing that we got to watch as the United States. We can't get fellas in office that's going to make all these wars, because Father said we should be able to pay the people to keep us out of war instead of taking us into war. But so for some reason, mostly every administration's had some kind of conflict with something. And even though we don't hear the major deal of every one of them, there's a lot of things going on in the world we don't hear. The major things we hear, but the major ones we don't.
Right.
At one time, it was 135 wars going on while the UN was in establishment. See, but you didn't know about those things. But it's been proven that was a fact, and you can see that Father was right in what he had to say about the communists not being endorsed in any kind of way. So I'll say that and finish it.
Now,
and in relation to the state communism of Russia and China, we have to consider that it's also not authentic communism. It's a totalitarian system, not a workers' government as it was originally conceived to be. And Father only began to speak against Eastern communism at the time that Stalin, post-war, after Stalin began to really become excessive in his dictatorial powers. Prior to that, Father had actually marched in the streets of New York City with the Communist Party, and he said positive things in the 1930s about it. He gave them a chance to articulate and live out their values, and they didn't do that. And by the time post-war, Eastern communism had developed into a system of exploitation. Father did say that the peace mission, this is not an alien communism, it is the communism of Jesus Christ. And he used that word, communism. And he said in 1935, May the 4th, 1935 in New York City, Father said, "I participate with the communists in their demonstrations because they are humanitarian workers." This is 1935. "The mission of Christ on earth among men. Whether they are claiming to be godly or non-godly is immaterial to me. It is wonderful. I say the communists are intelligent enough to know that the sky is nowhere and is nothing, but is everywhere where there is nothing. The communists are intelligent enough to know that every man is my brother, they are all my brothers, and the universe is my country. They are intelligent enough to know that all the earth is a paradise. When righteousness and justice shall prevail," had they pursued righteousness and justice, "when righteousness and justice shall prevail, the earth is a paradise in which we all shall live, and there will be no more wars and race riots among the people, for God himself shall have dominion mentally, spiritually, and otherwise." In the 30s in New York City, communists were integrated. Communists were demonstrating that aspect of brotherhood. And so Father praised the good in them at that point in time. But this is something very different from the state communism of Russia and China. And of course, Russia hasn't been communist for 30 years. And China is really a totalitarian capitalist state today. And so is Russia, a mafia-led totalitarian capitalist state. So
now, did Father have any?
Folded. The system is folded.
The Father, I don't mean to cut you off, but did Father have any words about runaway capitalism? Or Mother?
Absolutely. We recently, Father speaks against hoarding money. Father speaks against using money for selfish acquisition. We recently found a letter where Father said, if an individual or corporation amasses millions or even billions of dollars, you know that they have taken it from their employees. There's supposed to be a balance between capital and labor.
Right.
That's mutually enhancing. And, we've gotten away from that. People are struggling. People working 2 jobs full-time, struggling to have the basics of life. And a lot of it has to do with shareholder, the way these corporations are set up, shareholders who are only there for a brief time to get as much money as they can out of the company, and then they run it into the ground and move on, and that hurts people. Father certainly gave us a system. He didn't just talk about it. He gave us a system that would work better, a system that isn't communist, isn't capitalist. It's cooperative.
Wow. You know, we're going to shut her down for time restraints. Plus, I gotta make the kids a late dinner. I'm terrible. But I do want to thank you sincerely, everyone who's participated on the call tonight. Thank you, each and every one of you, for sharing with us all the most valuable things, or one of the most valuable things we all have, and that's our time. Thank you guys so very much.
Yes. Peace. We thank Father Mother in you for your willingness to give us time and to speak with us respectfully, and we all enjoy these sessions.
Yeah, and this ain't gonna be the last one, folks. You know, you got an open door here, a revolving door. We got a revolving door. You know, because we have to keep on saying it until the message is heard by those who need to hear it. All right.
Wonderful.
Well, that being said, you all have a great night and peace. Awesome. Oh, I mean, thank you all for bearing with me. I know it was hard with the technical problems earlier, and everything came through. The show was just as I envisioned it would be. A lot of great information, but I do have to feed these live studio audience over here. But as always, guys, thank you, all you viewers, all the listeners. This has been TMP. SR Live. I'm True Powers Mind. Today's date, I was about ready to say December, but it's June 28th, 2019, the year of our Lord. Live your life with integrity, without hate, envy, or greed. And as always, brothers and sisters, let's try to be kind to each other. Peace and power. Thank you all.